My name is Marion Whitfield. I'm 56, and I've spent 30 years as a photojournalist, half of it in newsrooms, the other half freelance, editing and verifying images for a living. I can tell you the season, the time of day, and sometimes the exact camera a photo was taken with, just from the light. So when my nephew submitted a claim against my late husband's auto policy, a policy I now managed as beneficiary, with photos of her totaled a car, I didn't need a detective. I needed about 90 seconds and a reverse image search. What I found wasn't just fraud. It was a photo I recognized, because I'd taken it myself, for years earlier, of a completely different car, in a completely different state. Welcome back to Channel Name, where quiet people stop absorbing the cost of everyone else's choices. If you've ever caught someone in a lie by accident, stay till the end. Drop a comment, hit subscribe. My husband Daniel died 14 months ago, pancreatic cancer, 6 weeks from diagnosis to the end, fast enough that we barely finished the conversations we needed to have. What we did finish was the paperwork. Daniel was meticulous that way. He'd been an actuary for 26 years, and even dying, he made sure every policy, every beneficiary line, was current and correct. One of those policies was a small umbrella auto policy covering an old sedan we kept registered for his sister's son, my nephew Corey, to use while he finished a certification program 2 towns over. Daniel's idea. Corey didn't have reliable transportation, and Daniel liked helping quietly, without making it a whole family production. The policy stayed in Daniel's name. After he passed, it transferred to me as his estate's executor, along with everything else. I didn't think about that policy again until the claim came in. Here's something I tucked away and never mentioned to Daniel, because he adored his nephew and I didn't want to be the aunt who kept score. 3 years earlier, Corey had asked to borrow my camera equipment, a few $1,000s worth of gear, for what he called a paid shoot. He returned it 2 months late, with a cracked lens hood he never mentioned or offered to replace. When I brought it up gently, he laughed it off. It's just a hood, Aunt Mar, it still works. It did still work. That wasn't really the point, and some small, quiet part of me noted that Cora treated other people's things as though damage were a conversation he simply didn't have to finish. I let it go. $3,000 in equipment wear wasn't worth a rift with Daniel's favorite nephew. 11 months after the funeral, an email arrived from the insurance company, a claim notification on the auto policy, filed by Corey as the listed driver, reporting a single vehicle collision, the sedan, totaled, hydroplaned into a guardrail. Photos attached. Requested payout, $9,400, the policy's collision maximum. As executor and beneficiary, I was the one who had to approve or contest it before it processed. I open the photos out of simple habit. I open every photo I'm sent the way other people check a receipt, scanning for what doesn't belong. The car in the images was crumpled correctly, guardrail damage consistent, rain-slicked asphalt, overcast light. Professionally shot. Almost. Too professionally shot, actually, for a phone photo taken roadside after a crash, even lighting, correct exposure, a composition that framed the damage a little too cleanly. Something in me, the part that spent 3 decades looking at thousands of images a year, said, I've seen this light before. I didn't call Corey. I did what I do professionally when a photo's origin feels wrong. I ran it through a reverse image search, the same tool I use to check whether a source has sent me a stock photo pretending to be original news footage. 4 results came back. The exact same image, cropped slightly differently, appeared on a salvage auto auction listing site, dated for years earlier, from a totaled vehicle sale in a different state. Same guardrail damage. Same rain-slicked road. Same everything, because it was the same photo. I checked the metadata on the file Corey submitted. Whoever downloaded and resubmitted it hadn't stripped the EXIF data. Amateur mistake, the kind I catch constantly in my actual job. camera model, timestamp, GPS coordinates. All 4 years old. All from a state Corey has never lived in. My stomach didn't drop the way you'd expect. It went cold and very still, the way it does at work when I realize a source has handed me something fabricated and I have to decide, calmly, exactly how to prove it before I say a word. I didn't confront him yet. In my field, you don't accuse a source of fabrication until you've verified every piece of it, because if you're wrong, you've destroyed a relationship for nothing, and if you're right, tipping your hand early just gives them time to build a better lie. I built a file the way I'd build a source verification report for an editor. Screenshot of the original salvage auction listing, dated and time-stamped. Screenshot of the EXIF metadata from Corey's submitted file, 4 years old, wrong state. A side-by-side crop comparison showing the images were pixel identical in the damage area. Then I checked something else, whether the actual sedan even existed anymore. I called the DMV's title records line, gave them the VIN from the policy, and asked for the vehicle's current title status. It came back active, registered, no salvage or total loss flag on file. The car Corey claimed was totaled wasn't totaled. As far as any public record showed, it wasn't even in an accident. It was, presumably, parked exactly where it always was. I drove past Corey's apartment complex on a Tuesday evening, not to confront him, just to look. The sedan sat in its usual spot, one door with a parking lot dent it had carried for 2 years, otherwise entirely intact. I called Daniel's old insurance agent, a woman named Priscilla who'd known our family for 15 years, and asked, hypothetically, what happens when a claim includes a fraudulent photo. She told me plainly, submitting fabricated documentation to support an insurance claim is felony insurance fraud in our state, full stop, regardless of the dollar amount, and the company's Special Investigations Unit takes reused image fraud seriously because it's become common enough to have a name in the industry, as stock damage claims. I filed a formal report with the insurer's fraud unit myself, attaching my comparison file. They opened an investigation within the week and asked me not to tip off the claimant while it was active, advice I didn't need, since tipping people off before you've locked down the proof was never something 30 years in newsrooms taught me to do. Cora's mother, Daniel's sister Renee, hosted a small gathering marking what would have been Daniel's 60th birthday, 6 weeks after I filed the report. Corey came, cheerful, asking within the first 10 minutes whether the insurance thing I had gone through yet, since he really needed that car fixed. I knew, because Priscilla had called me 2 days earlier, that the fraud unit's investigator had already confirmed the reused image and the DMV title mismatch, and that Corey had received a formal request for additional documentation he hadn't yet responded to. He didn't know I knew any of it. I brought one folder anyway, because some conversations need paper you can set on a table instead of words that can be denied later. We were partway through cake when Corey asked again, lighter this time, joking, Aunt Mar, come on, when's my check coming? I've been driving Mom's car for weeks. It's not coming, I said. The claim's been flagged for fraud. The room did the thing rooms do, forks stopping midair, Renee's eyes flicking between us. Cora's face did the thing I've watched 100 sources do when a fabricated quote gets challenged on live air, the half-second scramble before landing on outrage. Fraud? It was an accident. I don't know what you... I opened the folder. The salvage auction listing, dated 4 years ago. The metadata, time-stamped, wrong state entirely. The side-by-side comparison, pixel for pixel, the same photograph. I've spent 30 years verifying photographs for a living, I said, keeping my voice at the register. I use walking a junior reporter through a source that lied to them, flat, unhurried, not unkind. This is the same image, from a salvage auction 4 years ago, in a state you've never lived in. The car you claimed totaled is registered active with the DMV, no salvage flag, and it's parked outside your apartment right now with the same dented door it's had for 2 years. Renee's hand went to her mouth. Corey. I don't. Someone sent me that photo. I didn't. Corey started, and then stopped, because there was nowhere honest for that sentence to go. The insurance company's fraud unit already has everything, EI said. They flagged it independently of me submitting it, because the metadata alone triggered their system. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this because Daniel's name is still on that policy, and I wasn't going to let it be used to submit a felony claim without saying something. Corey pushed back from the table. This is insane. You're really doing this over $9,000? I'm doing this because it was never about the money, EI said. It's about you deciding the easiest thing to fake was a photograph from the one person in this family who spends her whole life catching exactly that. Nobody laughed. Renee didn't defend him. That, more than anything I'd said, was the answer landing. The investigation closed 3 months later. Corey was charged with insurance fraud because the claimed amount was under the felony threshold in some jurisdictions, but the state pursued it as a patent case once investigators found 2 similar reused image tactics on his social media history. He took a plea, no prison, but a fraud conviction, restitution of investigation costs, and a permanent mark that follows background checks. The policy claim was formally denied and closed without payout. Renee didn't speak to me for 2 months. She did eventually, quietly, and admitted she'd suspected something was off about the photos too, but hadn't wanted to be the one to say it. I understood that more than I let on. I'd stayed quiet about a cracked lens hood for 3 years for the exact same reason. I kept the auto policy but removed Corey as an authorized driver, effective immediately, and let Daniel's estate attorney handle the rest through proper channels instead of family conversation. Some things, I've learned, shouldn't be settled at a dinner table just because that's where they happen to come up. Here's what 30 years of verifying other people's photographs taught me that grief never did. The truth doesn't need you to raise your voice. It just needs you to look a little closer than everyone assumes you will. Daniel spent his whole career making sure numbers added up correctly, quietly, without ceremony. Catching this felt like the last thing I could still do for him. That's my story. 1 reused photograph, 1 salvage auction listing from 4 years ago, and a cake nobody finished. If you've ever caught someone in a lie because you happen to be the one person who'd actually notice, tell me in the comments. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.